Kuphena kuphi emakhaya amadolobheni nasekomplasta khona lapho ubukela khona SABC 1 uzakumukela ke mbukeli kuleli hlelo lakho ilungelo lakho, it's your right. Uhlelo ke lunethela kade indzaba texwayiso nalokunye lokuthinza ke wena njengemthengu njengebugebengu ke bama banking scams lesebushaye ke bathengi ekhikhini labanengi bangakagazi lobugebengu lokhu bukhipha ke imali yakho ku account yakho bangasebenzisi ikhadi mbukeli singamoshanga ngesikhathi asesike sizingene endzabeni yethu namhla. More and more consumers are falling victim to fast-growing banking scams known as vishing and card-not-present fraudulent schemes. The totally unsuspecting victim would be tricked into giving the fraudsters access into his or her account, and in no time, the seemingly tech-savvy scammers would have wiped out the victim's bank account. Kulombiko ke Papamatangana Dube usitshela ke ngalabanye ke lesabashawe timali etshisiwe kulobugebengu lekuthiwa ke i-vishing ne-card-not-present. Asasive ke na umbiko.
It was later in the morning he checked his phone and he saw that there were many SMSs that came through during the night.
Kuthe kanti ezo SMS zisuka ebhankini lacima emini langa kutata walomcholacholi wendaba waseGauteng. Ezo SMS bezixela undonakele.
There were several SMSs saying new beneficiaries were created on his account and how the money was moved around from his account to these beneficiaries' account, and they basically emptied out his bank account.
Obubukrelemnqa ke ibhanki yathi benziwe kwi-app ekonomi yayi wexhoba.
There was no way he could have downloaded the bank's app on his phone because it was a very old phone.
Utata walonondaba watsalelwa imali engaphezulu kwe-150,000. Akukho mntu wamtsalela umnxeba ecela iinkcukacha zakhe engenayo kwalo app yokuthumela imali. Zona ke ibhanki zilumkisa ngelithi azisoze zafowuna zicela iinkcukacha zomntu zamakhadi ebhanki kwane-one-time PIN. Ngokombutho iSouth African Banking Risk Information Centre SABC ngamafutshane zonyuke nge-55.4% iziganeko eziphathelene nokwebiwa kwemali zabantu kwii-apps xa kuthelekiswa nonyaka ka-2018. Emva kophando kwanokuquqa ebhankini iveki ezimbini zonke, ibhanki iye yayibuyisela imali yenkonde. Kunjalo lo wasetyhini usenemibuzo.
These are my questions, to the banks. What do they do to keep our money safe?
Ukanti zininzi iziganeko zokutsotswa kwabantu imali yabo zizikrelemnqa zisebenzisa oonomyayi. Kwamanye amatyeli ngabantu abathi banikezele ngeenkcukacha zabo kwizikrelemnqa bengaqondanga ukuba ayingobasebenzi basebhankini. Abathengi bakhuthazwa ukuba bahlabe bekhangele bangabelani nabantu ngeenkcukacha zabo zebhanki. Kwilungelo lakho ndinguPapamatshangana Dube.
Ukhuluma kabandike ngalobugebengu ke losebubhidlangile ke asesimukele ke ku Skype kwaNdava Baza lobuya ke ehhovisi le-Ombudsman for Banking Services South Africa. Siphinde sibe naLusha Dlamini yena ke uvela eCapitec Bank. Sanibukela sanibonana ehlelweni.
Sabona seniphiwe and sibulise nabalaleli bani.
Lusha siphinde sikumukele na ehlelweni. Siyabonga Lusha, I'm going to start with you. Yeah, sitawuqala ngawo ke Lusha ukuthi sichazele kabandike ukuthi yini le vishing ngoba kunezinhlobo tebugebengu kunakulethiwa i-phishing, i-smishing, nyalo ke sekune vishing ne card not present. Ukuthi yini le vishing kahle kahle?
So Siphiwe, zonke lezi zinto zibalayo zifola under i-category A1 esibiza ngokuthi i-digital fraud, abanye bayibiza ngokuthi i-cybercrime. So i-vishing specifically suke sikhuluma nge-fraud where umuntu uzothola i-phone call from umuntu angamazi, loyo muntu uzomtshela ukuthi ufona from a bank and then amtshela ukuthi banendlela eziningi nje abakwazi ukuthi bangathola i-information kuwena. So bangakutshela ukuthi no kune-debit order ephume ku-account yakho, bacela ukuthi ubaphe ama-details wakho ukuze bazokusiza ukuthi bayistophe leyo debit order, or bazokutshela ukuthi kune debit order efuna ukudonsa kune company efuna ukudonsa kwi-account yakho, so bafuna ukuthi kunezinto ekumele uzenze kwi-app yakho ezowenza ukuthi ivimbe abantu from ukuthi badonse imali. Kanti izinto abakutshela zona ukuthi uzenze, it gives them ama-details wakho, it also gives them access ukuthi bayenze ama-transactions kwi-account yakho wena ungawa-authorizanga. So i-vishing yenzeka kanjalo.
Okay, Mr. Vabaza, asichazele kabanti-ke i-role yelihhovisi le-ombudsman for banking industry in South Africa ukuthi-ke ingabe lisebenza kanjani lihhovisi ekutheni bathengi bavikeleleke kulo bugebengu lobunjengalobu?
So thina la e-ombudsman for banking services Simphiwe, umsebenzi wethu ukuthi umuntu for instance osafare a vishing fraud incident onenkinga nebhank yakhe uyile wahamba wayetshela ibhank ukuthi mina I've been a victim but ibhank yami ayifuni ukungisiza. So abantu abanjalo who've been to their bank and abazange babasize, then they can come to an office to Ombudsman for Banking Services. We will investigate a complaint leyo and resolve it. But depending on the facts of your stuff, in some of the matters we will recommend that the bank refund the monies. But if we find that yes, a customer compromises the information, then unfortunately we may find against the customer.
So from the complaints or the queries that you've received in the banking ombudsman, how prevalent is e-vishing?
Simphiwe, ngathi almost all our cases that were internet banking fraud, credit card fraud, or mobile banking fraud, they all almost include e-vishing. So, njengoba ulusha bekashilo, people bayabafonela, the customers, they phoned by this person, ati ufona from a bank, ati there is fraud maybe in your account. Then this person acele the customer to provide them with the OTP that is sent by a bank to authenticate the transaction. And then after obviously they have that information, then unfortunately, fraud takes place in the account. But yes, majority of the cases that we receive at the Ombudsman for Banking Services involve fraud, and evasion is particularly prevalent when it comes to those complaints.
Nguveke ukhuluma nge-OTP kuthi ke letigeleke celeti tiyakufonela ticela ukuthi tifuna i-OTP. Surely i-OTP iphuma if already there's a transaction in progress. Kuthi ingabe ngubani ke lelo cala le transaction kuze kuthi kuphumele OTP?
So Simphiwe, what is important ukuthi sikhumbule ukuthi yes, so ama fraudsters can have a card number yakho, but it's card number alone, you can't do anything now. So what they also need to complete the transaction are two things. They will need a CVV number, which is the card verification value, or the CVC card verification code. So your number is normally 3 digits. So they need that information. And because in most instances, that information, card number and the CVV number, easy to. So what the banks have done and introduced is what we call a one-time PIN, OTP, which is then sent with number that the bank has on record. So if bank yakho account, ubanikeza a cell phone number or email address, la ufuna bakucontacte khona. So that same number, yiyo la bakusendela kuyo the OTP to validate the transaction. So yes, as much as yes, they can have a card number, the CVV number, but for that transaction or imali ukuthi ihambe ku-account yakho, they need that OTP. So that's why they call you when there's a customer. The fraudsters call you, they ask for that number, and then unfortunately, most customers, they give out that number, and unfortunately fall victim to a fraud.
Okay, so Lucia, bobani kahle who normally fall victim to this? Is it holders of online banking account, cell phone banking, noma ke labo ke labaya ekhaya ebhanki ukuthi bobani kahle who fall victim to this, who are more vulnerable to this?
Anyone on a bank account can fall victim to fraud vishing, because abadingi kuphela nje i-online profile yakho ukuthi ba-transfer imali. Bayakwazi ukuthi ba-transfer imali using services like mobile banking, or ba-create izinto ezifana nama-e-wallet or send cash or cash send, or those transfers ozenza nge-cell phone number. And then for that, you need to be, your cell phone number needs to be registered to your banking profile. And almost every client on an account in every bank unayo i-cell phone number that is registered or that is linked to leyo account leyo. So kuba nezinto ezifana nama-mobile banking where you can access i-account yakho using the USSD code. So bayakwazi ukuthi futhi bakudefraud using those USSD codes. So to answer your question, it's anyone and everyone who has a bank account that can fall victim to phishing.
Okay, yeah.
Just to add, sorry, Simpiwe.
Yeah, go on.
I think vele kuna this illusion or delusion yokuthi only people abana internet bank or people who are not sophisticated abafall victim to this kind of fraud, and it's not true. Tina, most of the complaints esizithola la office, it's people who've been using internet banking, people who are educated. We've had instances of professors as well falling victim to this type of fraud, and I think I just need to clarify, which is not just abantu abangafundanga abafola victim to this fraud. Like Lusha, anyone with a bank account, and we've noticed that yes, they do target the elderly as well, people who do not use internet banking. But as long as the card lakho, for especially card not present transactions, as long as your card can be used to do transactions online, then you are susceptible or you can fall victim to this type of fraud.
Okay, I want to engage you both a little bit more on this. Mbukeli, namhlanje sikhuluma ke nge-vishing lokusho ukuthi ke tigebengu nyalo setiyakhona ukuthatha imali yakho ebhange bangakatholi ikhadi lakho noma ke i-card not present. Sitawuchubeka abantu ke ukuthi ingabe ungadivikela kanjani wena kulo bugebengu lobu njengaloku. Asibambe khona lapho sisike shwi ngasetitolo. Leli lilungelo lakho. Asinabukele ke bekunene ehleleni lakho ilungelo lakho, it's your right. Tincingo tethu ke tivuliwe ukuthi nawe ungavakalisa umbono wakho. Shayela ke licingo bekunene, it's on your screens right now, 0117146918 noma ke 0117146919. Ungasithumela futhi ne-email ku consumer@sabc.co.za. Ungaphinde usithole futhi na ku Facebook. Namhla ke bekunene, if you just joined us, sikhuluma ke nge-vishing lokusho ukuthi ke tigebengu nyalo setiyakhona ukudonsa imali yakho ku-account yasebhange bangakatholi ikhadi lakho. Lebakwendako ukuthi bayakushayela bende ngathi bashaya ebhange bathole i-pin number yakho, bathole ne-ID number yakho, bathole ne-OTP, which is the one-time pin lekungiyona ke iqhamuka ku-account yakho, bese ke uyabanika ngoba phela nawe awadi ucaba ukuthi basebhange kanti ke tigeleke icela. But namhla ke bekunene sina Kwanda Vabaza uqhamuka ke ombudsman for banking services, phinde sibe naLusha Dlamini uqhamuka ke eCapitec Bank. Now let me bring you into this conversation, Kwanda. I understand ukuthi ke fraudsters noma ke leti gebengu before baqale ukutshontsha imali tebathengi baqale bende i-background search on that particular bank client ukuthi ke yini le information lebayifunako kuze ukuthi ke bathole ukudonsa imali.
So the information that they're getting is about the client. So it's called actually social engineering. So the attack is so specific when Kwanda or when as a potential victim that when they call you back phonela, they have your information. So they do research about you, the potential victim. So they will normally know your ID number. They normally know where you stay. And in some instances, and from the complaints that SS Tolile office, they know your card number. So with all this information, and again, they also know that yes, in your account, there's the last withdrawal maybe you did. They know that information. As to where they're getting that information, we're not 100% sure. But again, it can be from it-has-been, where if you throw away your statement, it can be Guma emails, it can be information or against the other people. But it's information that fraudsters now have. And when they call you, and they tell you all this information about you, you feel comfortable now as a customer with, yes, I'm speaking to a person from the bank. It's just a lie. It's just a fraudster who just did their research. And because of that research, consumers, they end up giving away information, sensitive information, which allows the fraudsters access to their account.
Thanks for making that point, Kwanda. Out of all the variety of information that he's been presenting, is that uyabuka nalapho ulahla khona ke ma bank statement akho nema ATM receipt ngoba ke ngilapho ke bawadopa khona ke gebengu babuke ne information yakho. Let's take our first caller. Sina Phumzile ulapha ke eKatlehong. Sakumele hleleni sawubona.
Sawubona njani?
Siyaphela kunjani sisi?
Uphumzile Mlangeni from eKatlehong.
Siyabonga khuluma nasi.
Ngiyabona ukuthi ukhuluma ngendaba ze-fraud into yasebank. Ngacishe nami ngenzakalele ukuthi ngifuna ukushare istory kubantu ukuthi laba beza ngamuphi umqondo. Yes, ngangiyoshintsha inamba yokuthi ama-notification wami angene enambeni entsha le bese ngiyisebenzisa. Ngiyo-reversa futhi nalama 99 rand nama 89 rand engingawazi bewahlala adebita kwi-account yami for years and years and years.
Yes.
Nangempela mangiqeda ukuphuma kuma-enquiries e-Standard Bank e-Chris Animal ngiphuma nje ngisathi kwi-food court ngisasihambele kungena i-call ithi siyabona la ukuthi ulokhu reversa into ze-Standard Bank nantontoni sifuna ukukusiza ukuthi we are calling from Standard Bank. Ngithi mina ngani ngiphuma e-bank khona manje bathi hayi mongakhona ifonele number nangempela badrophe ngiyifonele number ithi welcome to Standard Bank Berry. Okay, fine sharp ngicishe ukukholwa ngisalinde kanjalo bafoni bathi uyabona ukuthi Standard Bank elele sifuna ukukusiza nangempela ngithi sengizosizakala ngenxa ukuthi lama debit order for years and years and years 3, 4 or 5 years angidonsela every time funa ngiwa reverse. Nangempela bafuna i-card number ngiliphethe obvious ngibuye ebank ngibanike i-card number yami sharp kodwa ukubanika i-card number bathi bafuna i-pin number hayi qale lapho ke inkinga ngithi kwathi webank singanikazana i-pin bathi sizama ukukusiza bashintshana baze baba bathathu because lo owokugcina oqala ukukhuluma isiXhosa olothuke kubena accent esisuthu lo wokugcina bayakubukuza ukuthi i-colored abantu besifazane bonke laba abangifonelayo uze ukuthi hayi man bakwatile ke manje you are stubborn, we trying to help you here. Ngathi nje ebank kwathiwa singaphani ngephini ngababambe ephinini azange basakwazi but you are stubborn bangidethisa efonini badrop ngabuyela ebank immediately because bengisesemall ngabuyela ebank ngafike ngafuna i-bank manager ngamchazisela wathi yo usizilo ngoba ngabanika iphini.
Sure. Hi, Phumzile siyabonga kakhulu. Thank you so much for sharing such valuable information. It really will go a long way. Kuze kuthi ke kusitakala bathengi labanengi kuthi ke bangabi ama victims alobugebengu lobungaka. Lusha nawe ke wanda ngiyathemba nimvele ke Phumzile lapha ashare so valuable information, and which is the most important aspect of it all is that never ever give out your PIN. So Lusha ke, and I want both of you to answer this question. Lusha nawe kwanda kuthi nangabe bakufonela, how do I ascertain ukuthi lo muntu lona vele wasebhange noma ke sigebengu? Because I understand ukuthi labanye bakhuluma ngelive lelimnanzi vele nje nawe utawugcine so fall a victim to lenvole. Ukuthi ngithola kanjani ukuthi kahle kahle labantu laba basebhange noma ke akusibo kwanda?
I think into important to mention ukuthi so it happens sometimes ukuthi ibank yakho it detects fraud enzakalayo kwi-account yakho. So, and then they call you to ask if you actually the person making that transaction. So yes, when the transaction. Your bank sometimes it does that. But the one thing that your bank will never ask for is your OTP number or your CVV number. They will never ask for that information. So I think what people need to be aware is that banks, yes, as much as they may call you as a customer, but there's some information that they will never ask. Like I just said now, CVV number. CVV number is basically your PIN for making online transactions. That's what is needed to make online transactions. They will never ask you for your password. They will never ask you for your PIN. So all that information is confidential, and bank customers, they need to be aware that information. Confidential means it should be known by you. It should not just be told to just anyone. You do not give out that information. So I think that is the lesson customers just need to learn.
Okay, thanks for that, Wanda. Now, Lucia, yini ke tinkhomba lekumele ukuthi ngitibuke kuze ukuthi ngibone ukuthi lo muntu lo ngifonelako vele wasebhange ke noma cha. What is it that I should look out for?
So, abantu mabakfonela, like you said earlier, they sound very convincing. You'd actually believe they are from the bank. Kodwa into ebalekile ukuthi wazi i-account yakho na ukuthi ihamba kanjani. You know the transactions that are taking place in your account. So if umuntu azokfonela athi I'm calling you regarding a debit order ye 89 rand, the first thing you must ask yourself, do you have a debit order ye 89 rand, number one? How long has it been debiting on your account? Ungakwazi uku-accessa your app right there and there, or your statement, ucheck lento abakhuluma ngayo and verify ukuthi vele iqiniso na. If not, don't entertain your phone call leyo. And like Ukwanda said, bank will never ever call you bese bakucela i-PIN number yakho or bakucela even your passwords. Kunama debit order that bank uyakwazi ukwa-reverse through the app wena yourself without having to need omunye umuntu on the other side of the line akudirect ukuthi yenza kanje yenze kanje, or athi ngiphi i-PIN number yakho or ngiphi password yakho silog onto your account. Bank will never log into your account yakho or will never log into your banking app remotely while you are on the phone and do transactions now with app yakho. They will never do that. So into balekile ukuthi as soon as you are asked, like uPhumzile said, the minute bacela i-PIN number or bacela izinto ezifana nama password, you must know ukuthi that is not your bank. You would rather tell those people ukuthi uzoya ngaphakathi ebranchini and inquire from there and find out ukuthi kuyaqala kwi-account yakho, but never ever give information efana naleyo over the phone.
Asishiye lapho ke Lusha nawe ke wanda sitawuchubana nkulumo yethu emvakela likhefu ke bekunene namhla sikhuluma nge-vishing lokusho ukuthi ke bugebengu lobukhona manje kuleli khathi tanyalo lekwenda ukuthi abantu bakhona ukudonsa imali yakho ebhange ku-bank account yakho bakatfola ikhadi lakho bakushayela babute ikhadi number yakho babute ne-PIN number babute ne-OTP number kube kuhamba kwakho ke imali yakho. So namhla kumcoka bekunene ukuthi nilalele lo hlelo nive ukuthi ningatiphephisa kanjani lo bugebengu lokunjena. Let's take a pause right there. Siphinde sibuye la ngasetolo sawuphinde sibuye khona nyalo leli lungelo lakho. Sanibukela bekunene namhla ke sikhuluma nge-vishing noma ke kuntshontsha kwethi imali takho ebhange bangakasebenzisi ikhadi. Incingo efike ivuliwe. You can call us on 0117146918 noma ke 0117146919. You can email your thoughts to consumer@sabc.co.za or follow us on our Facebook pages. Namhla ke sina Kwanda ulapha ke ombudsman for banking services South Africa. Siphinde sibe na Lusha Dlamini yena ukuchama eCapitec Bank. But asichazela kabantu ukuthi yini lokumele ukwende kuze ukuthi utephephise wena kulobugebengu lethiwa ke i-vishing lokusho ukuthi ke bavele batigebengu titomula ke imali ku-account yakho ungakagatse futhi ke bangakasebenzisi nelikhadi lakho. Now Lusha, before singakaye ke ekhefini bosichazela kabantu ukuthi lama fraudsters baye bacele banking details akho nabo OTP number nabo PIN number. Okay, lokho ke sesiyadi ukuthi vele once umuntu angacela lokho chances are vele he's a fraudster. Sengidawati kanjani ke ukuthi ke umuntu wasebhange noma ke a banking official who is genuinely making that call ufuna kungisita ukuthi ngempela vele wasebhange ngidawubona kanjani ukuthi wasebhange lo muntu loyo?
So like we said, umuntu wasebank angeke azacele information pertaining to your internet banking. So those are the first things you need to look out for. Uma benza i-verification, so ama-bank ahlukahlukene anendlela ezihlukahlukene zokwenza i-verification to verify ukuthi umuntu abakhuluma naye i-client. But this happens mostly if wena ofonela i-bank to ask them ukuthi bakusize something. So if bona bafonela wena ushuthi ukuthi suke sekune transaction eyenzakala already, like Ukwanda said earlier on. Ama-bank sometimes akakufonela to confirm a transaction because as singama-bank siyasebenzisana uma sibona i-transaction out of what we call client behavior, siyakwazi ukuyiflaga as a system as a potential fraudulent activity. So sizozama ukuthi sifonele i-client simbuze ukuthi i-transaction eso yenziwe wena na or uyayazi or you approve it. Already as somebody osebenzisa i-bank account often, if wenze i-payment to Lusha Dlamini ye 30,000 rand, uyazi ukuthi uyenzile leyo payment. So you can confirm those details to your bank. But if you know ukuthi awenzanga leyo transaction, chances are there's already fraud happening via account yakho. Then you can just inform your bank ukuthi no, I didn't. In most cases, a bank will then inform you to go open a criminal case. Or uyenza i-affidavit eshoyo ukuthi awuyenzanga that transaction.
Okay, ingabe ke bashaya ngenombolo letitsini ngoba I suppose ke bakhona kumanipulator tinombolo kube ngathi iqhamuka ebhange noma ke iqhamuka from any other call center yalapho ebhange kuna na inombolo lesizonda sonke lecala nga 087. Sengivile ke ukuthi ke khona le bakwendayo kuze ukuthi bashaye ngalo 087.
From what we've seen recently, most of the time, our calls are getting from a cell phone number. So I remember a couple of weeks ago, I totally called Gwamina, Bazama Shaya, and it was from a cell phone number. And when I asked this agent who was claiming to be from the bank, Oguti, why I'm from a cell phone, what you know, because of COVID-19 regulations, they are working from home. So they are using cell phones. Exactly. So isn't that fine? Those are the things we need to pick up. And Upumzile earlier on mentioned Uguti, she called the number back, Yamfagagu call center. So ama fraudsters are they are actually able to divert ama calls or ama call center to their cell phone number. So ungakuphazamiseke kancane uthi uyayifonela bank number ikufake khona ebank vele usitshela ukuthi ayishuthi into yasebank kodwa esikhathini esiningi akusiyona into yasebank. Like we said, if kungukuthi bakutshela nge-transaction engekho kwi-account yakho or ongayazi, chances are ayikho or ungaya inside the bank and actually verify with your bank. If you are not sure or late i-bank isivaliwe, ungangena kwi-app yakho. Aside from that phone call, when uzingenele ku-app and verify ukuthi the transaction abakhuluma ngayo, does it appear on your bank statement now? Ama-transaction enza ku-bank statement appear in real time. So mazothumela imali manje and ungene kwi-statement sakho, uzoyibona leyo mali kwi-statement sakho. So that's how you can try and just go an extra mile to verify ukuthi into abakutshela yona over the phone, is it what is happening on your account at the time.
Okay, Lucia, siyabonga ukuzivula ngemehlo kulolu hlangothi. Let's take our next caller. Sina Khanyi ulapha ke eDurban eThekwini. Siyabonga kakhulu usihlela Khanyi, sawubona.
Yebo sawubona, thank you.
Khuluma nathi
mama. Yes, I'm one of the victims.
Okay.
Ngibona ukuthi victim benza abafuna lo pin press 1 ngaw pressa and then yanyamalala imali u13,000.
Yo.
And then ngaye bank ngayo report bangiblame ukuthi wengafanele ngibanikeza inamba kube yiphutha lami. Well, it's fine. And then ngayovula icase, ngavula icase emaphoyiseni. Khona iform eqhamuke emaphoyiseni eya ebank. Umseshi wathi wayithatha wayise ebank yasayinela. For a week ngixoxa ebank bethi abayitholanga. Umseshi waze washo ukuthi ilento isayine ubani. Nangempela aphume lo sisi lo osebenza ngaphakathi ebank ukuthi uyena oyisayina, but for a week ngigqiqa athi akayisayinanga. So konke lokho angenza ngaba nama suspicions ukuthi this is an inside job. Nga-end up ukuthi ngithathe i-lawyer for that. So i-lawyer yasenda incwadi eyodwa nje yokuthi le mali ngathi ngo-2020 kwaku-June kwayima be-responda bangibuyisela leyo mali. Sometimes mina ngiyafeel ukuthi there are some people, there are some culprits elentuzane inside, it's an inside job.
So abazange bakhona kuyi-reversa leyo mali leyo khona le bhange? Hi Khanyi. Okay Khanyi, yes.
Yes, all right.
Yeah, abazange ke na ubacela ukuthi bayi-reverse leyo mali ebhange bathi abakhonanga?
Abakwazanga ukuyi-reversa kwathiwa bayikhiphe ngaleso sikhathi bashiya. There were two people lento umseshi bathola amagama abo ama-profile abo kwathola ukuthi abantu abahlala eScotland camp kukhona ukuthi ungathekho umuntu ohlala eMjondolo kwaphela.
Okay, Khanyi, sabonga kakhulu ukusishayela Khanyi lapha ulapha eDurban. Now wonder, this is a very let's say prevalent issue lesivile ke esikhathini lesiningi ukuthi imali iyadonswa after a phishing experience. Nekuthi ke emabhange baye bese bablame lama customer ukuthi babanikeleni ema pin number abo. Kuthi ke ingabe emabhange are they not complicit yini?
So, Tina, from our side, we can only investigate as to whether there was email administration or whether the bank did something wrong or not to result in the fraud happening. So, Tina, we do not investigate the criminality of the situation. So, in this instance, for instance, she says, utole a call again from someone not to a bank, and then that person would press a number 1 to authorize the transaction that the fraudsters were making. Now, people, whenever they receive this SMS or before they press 1, there's normally a message from the bank saying, if you press 1, you're authorizing a payment. Now, there is an alert. People, they do not read. Abafundi the message. They just follow my instruction and just press without reading. And unfortunately, if you now, as a customer, press that 1, you authorizing a bank on your behalf to make the payment to whatever account that is chosen by the fraudsters. And because of that, Tina, as an office, we will find it difficult to find fault with bank. Versus someone, Otola, the same message, Magaifunda, 1 says authorize payment, and then 2 says if it's not you, immediately contact the bank or call this fraud number to report the incident. And then that someone, for Tina, it's not a secure transaction. So we also need to differentiate, I guess, what we call a 3D secure transaction, because 3D secure means the OTP or that one that you press, you authenticated when that transaction as a customer. But if you do not receive that OTP or you do not press that 1, and then a transaction yenzeke, then you have what we call a chargeback. And in most instances, the bank will refund imali yakho.
Okay.
And I actually needed to just go back to a point about calling back a number that the fraudsters are by 7
Yes.
Now, we advise people as well not to call the same number that the fraudsters are calling from. So if you hang up and you want to report a fraud to your bank, if you do not have that number saved, then Google the number, the bank's fraud number, call that number, but do not call the number the same number that the fraudsters use. Because you will hear the same background from Mama Bank, because these people, they do research, they set up environment so that, yes, it feels like it's the bank. So customers are advised to save the bank's number on their phones. And so when if fraud yenzeka, you quickly dial that same number that you say to report the fraud. I'm not sure if I answered you.
Great point you made there. Thank you, Siyabonga kakhulu Kwanda. Kwanyalo ke mbukela asesathe likhefu. Khumbula kumbukelo sinambe kushaya umuntu athi wasebhange ucela iPIN number yakho, ucela necard number yakho, hang up immediately. Vele nje ulicishe lelo cingo, uhambe uyo reporter leyo incident leyo ebhange. Nangabe ke awukhona ke kuyakhona ungabashayela get the bank's fraud number. Ungashayi ngale nombolo letigeleke icele tishaye ngayo ngoba chances are they've manipulated that number. Asase market bekunene sitabuya khona nyalo. Welcome back. Our lines in studio are 0117146918, nomage 0117146919. These are participation lines. Ungashayela ke licingo kuvakalisa umbono wakho. You can catch us on our social media platforms. Namhla sikhuluma nge-vishing noma ke kulahlekelwa imali ngeke tigebengu tikushayele ticele ke iPIN number yakho, ticele necard number yakho, divele tidonse ke imali yakho wena ungakacapheli. Namhla ke siyanifundisa kabantu bekunene ukuthi ungatiphephisa kanjani kulolu game lokunjalo. Let's take another caller. Sina Anonymous. Siyakumela ehleleni sawubona.
Hi.
Yebo kunjani?
Ngiyaphila njani?
Siyaphila khulu. Talk to us, ma'am.
Okay, so mina I just found this interesting. This is something that happened to me while I work for the bank. So it's something that I always feel that we cannot blame it on a customer, and I also cannot blame it on the bank itself. I don't know what happened. So what happened is I was somewhere and there was a transaction that was happening in my account. I had everything in me, the card it was in me, but there was a transaction that was happening somewhere. So luckily for me at that point, I was close to the branch because that day I was not working. I was closer to the branch, just got in and I'm like, there's a transaction happening right now in Rose Bank and I'm in 4 weeks. So there's no way that I'm the one who's doing this transaction. And just previous day, so I'm raising a point where they were saying you need to understand the transaction that goes within your account, because previous days, just before that, there were something that was happening within my account where someone was checking balance in my account, and I did notice that, but I'm like, okay, who's doing this? Just after the deposit came into my account, then a transaction was happening somewhere else.
Okay, so did you report that particular incident?
Yes, I had to report it, and they had to refund me because now, therefore, I had the card with me. So it's not like I lost my card where you will say it was my fault because I lost my card. No. So I had to report it. We had to do a follow-up. They had to refund because now I have everything, but the transaction did still go through.
You know, Anonymous, I hate putting you on the spot, but you say you work for the bank, right?
Yeah, I work for the bank.
Yeah, there's rumors and unfounded allegations to the effect that this is always an inside job because the fraudsters themselves, when they do the background research on a potential, victim, where do they normally get all this information? Because it's only the bank that holds that particular information.
But if you think about it, this is just my view, right? Depending on an individual, because I'm not going to mention a bank.
Yes.
The current bank that I'm working for, someone linked the information. It was once on the news where that bank, someone who was a consultant of that bank, linked information. So I think you do find such, and ever since then, I've been interested in some of these cases where, yes, someone will link information and get hold of your info. It's the same thing that happens when someone opens an account with your name. Yeah, so yes, I don't want to confirm it, but I do believe that. So depending on the information that you have, what are you doing with it? You know, so I guess the bank just need to trust people's information with their with their staff, which is not always the case where someone can be trusted. Yes, we do sign all these things, but the question is, when you are signing, for an example, if you are a fraudster and you get employed by the bank, does it mean you're going to stop that?
Okay.
You know,
Anonymous, thank you so much for your call. We do appreciate it. All right, now Lucia, nawe-ke kwanda ngiyathemba ntivele-ke Anonymous lapha ukhuluma-ke nge-modus operandi how these fraudsters operate. Now Lucia, and I want both of you to respond to that. Now Lucia, I'm going to start with you. Ukuthi ingabe kwendeka njani into lenjalo-ke nekuthi-ke i-responsibility yelibhange ku-protecta ema-consumers yini?
So I think we've already touched on modus operandi with the phone calls.
Yes.
In the case of Anonymous, where azangathole call, there could have been a number of reasons why information was leaked. We were talking about it during the end break. Sometimes you go to a restaurant and as you make a payment in a card, a waiter walks away with your card, but aunagide. And when the waiter walks away with your card, they are writing down your card details, including the 3 digits at the back, which is a CVV number.
Sure.
And with those details, they are able to load your card for online purchases, which is what a card not present is. But most banks would also send you an OTP before that transaction is approved. And that's when you would get the phone call from the fraudster after that OTP. Or depending on the value and the website, sometimes they might not even send that OTP, depending on the regulations that are put in by the specific bank. So that transaction will then go through. If bank will reimburse people based on a number of reasons, it could be process failure from the banker's side, or it could be that a client reported the matter, but if bank has acted timelessly in assisting the client to stop the transaction from happening. So ama-MO akhona ahlukahlukene are different. So esikhathini esiningi, yes, masikhuluma nge-vishing, you will get a phone call, but there's card not present where you might not even get the phone call. Uthola ukuthi information yakho bayithole ngezinye indlela. As far as internal involvement is concerned, ngaphakathi emabhenki, look, we're not going to lie and say there isn't any. Sometimes it does happen ukuthi abantu abasebenza ngaphakathi ebhenki are involved. Mara ibhenki my investigator, they are 99% of the time guaranteed to find the culprit and take action against that person and put in place ama-processes nama-policies azonceda ukuthi izinto ezifana lezi zingasenzeki. Enye into ebalulekile ukuthi ama-client ma-reporter these matters, they need to be specific about what transpired. So if uthole i-phone call, sitshele ukuthi uthole i-phone call, ungasabi ukuthi uma ngibatshela ibhenki angeke isanginikeze imali yami, because information esiyithola kuwena iyona ezosisiza thina ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi sibeke izinto in place ezizoprotecta not only the bank but the customer as well. and preventing from this similar incidents from happening again.
So is the money traceable? Ngoba nabayidonsa le mali obviously ayiphelele emoyeni iya kulenye i-bank account ngilapho ke babe sebayithdraw khona ke. So can the banks trace that particular bank account, the final destination of the cash, as it were?
Yes, the banks are able to trace the funds, and ama-bank ayasebenzisana in assisting with what we call securing of the funds. So for example, if imali iphuma from bank A iya to bank B, i-client reporte ku-bank A ukuthi imali yami isiphumile, i-bank iyakwazi ukucheck ukuthi leyo mali iphume yaya kuphi. Bese ba-contacta u-bank B, batshela i-bank B ukuthi i-secure those funds, while silinde ukuthi i-client is provided with all the necessary information esiyidingayo. So yes, we can trace it. Sometimes kenzakala ukuthi ama-fraudsters are very quick. So before they even call you, sebanama account abazothumela imali khona, labo bantu sebeme standby ukuthi bawithdraw leyo mali. So sometimes it does happen ukuthi by the time when you realize ukuthi you've been scammed, the fraudsters have already withdrawn the funds. But i-bank iyakwazi ukupha that information to the police once the investigation has started. Amaphoyisa can subpoena the bank to give the information ukuthi where did the money go to, who does that account belong to, imali bayiwithdrawe kuphi, at what time, and all those details.
All right, asishiye lapho ke Lucia. Let's take a final ad break. Hlake nasimbukele ungasanyakati. Leli lungelo lakho. Welcome back to our very last segment. Siqhubeka nenkulumo yethu namhla ke nge-vishing noma ke kutshontshwa kwemali ngaphandle kokusebenzisa ikhadi noma ke i-card not present. Kuthe ke ngwadivikela kanjani kulo bugebengu lobunjena? Sina Lucia Dlamini yena ke urepresenta iBasa iBanking Association of South Africa, uchamuka eCapital Bank. Siphinde sibe na Kwanda yena ke uchamuka ombudsman for banking industry in South Africa. Now before we wrap the show, Kwanda, simvile ke na anonymous lapha ke uthi yena she's an employee of the bank, and uyachaza ukuthi that the banks may be complicit in a way insofar as not protecting the customer's information. What is the bank's responsibility in this particular instance? Kuvikela ke emakhasimende noma ke bathengi from lo bugebengu lobunje.
I think Lucia Begasa touched on that. Yes, as much as fraudsters, they can have the card number yakho, and yes, in some instances, the CVV number yakho. But for that transaction to go through, especially Kuma card not present transaction, they still need the OTP yakho. So bank, they will send that OTP to you as a customer, and now it's up to you as a customer to keep that OTP confidential. If you give out that information, the OTP to fraudsters, unfortunately, then you would have compromised your confidential banking details, allowing or enabling fraudsters to take money from your account. So, and yes, I think banks are quickly and slowly introducing other measures to try and combat this type of fraud. I know there's other issues, obviously, with the SIM swaps, which now banks are introducing in-apps. So SMSs, they now send them via your app. But again, without customers taking that responsibility of not giving out information, phishing is always there. It will always be there. As much as, yes, new ways of doing things will be introduced and can be introduced. But if our customers are still giving out information, confidential information, unfortunately, there's nothing more that can be done. So I think there must be education from the customers. Okay. It's important.
Now, Lucia, your thoughts on how the banks can protect customers and how the customers themselves can protect themselves from this criminal activity?
The banks are already working on a number of projects that are going to assist in making sure Uguti isn't as far internet banking or cell phone banking are much safer and stricter. Oguti must be much stricter. We also need the customer to do what they need to play their part, basically, in making sure fraudsters don't get access to their apps. So, for example, you find that there's an additional message that is sent to the customer before a transaction takes place. We need the customer to read that message and ensure that when they respond to that message, they respond accordingly. Because it doesn't help to just press 1 to proceed when you have not read the actual message, because it is that message that's going to protect you. So again, I had mentioned earlier on, the information as Itolaguma customer when they send through their queries is what is helping us to come up with more strategies or more processes that we can put in place to help protect customers. So our customers must be detailed as possible maba report ama incident bangafihli information, because if you want information lesiyisebenzisayo ukuze sikwazi ukuthi senze ama app na mobile banking ukuthi abe more safer for the customer.
So nangabe ke ngititfola ke ngikule situation le njengaleyo, what are the do's and the don'ts if I receive an unsolicited call?
I think Wanda touched on it earlier. The most important thing to do is to communicate with your bank.
Okay.
So if uthola a phone call, hang up that phone call and call bank yakho from their verified line, not from the phone call or the number otolebuye you call. If you are unable to make a call and you are able to go to the bank itself, then go to the bank and report the matter. The sooner you report it to the bank, the sooner the bank can put the rules in place to actually try and help you either secure as much as possible of your funds or try and understand what really transpired in your case. So the most important thing is to communicate with your bank.
Just one more thing, Simpiwe.
Yeah.
It's also important to get our customers to report any SIM swaps. If you know as a customer you did not request for a SIM swap, if you see a SIM swap being done on your number, immediately report that to your bank as well, not just to your network provider.
All right, Kwanda Vabaza from the Ombudsman for Banking Services in South Africa. Now we're Lusha Dlamini representing the Banking Association of South Africa, also from Capitec Bank. Sebo kakhulu kuhlanganyela nathi. Let me thank our guests for making time to be with us this afternoon. Please join us again for yet another consumer affairs discussion next week. And remember, from the 6th of April, this live slot moves to Tuesdays at 4:30 p.m. Tuesday, 4:30 p.m. from the 1st of April. We'll have live corner from Miss Mpio and the rest of the team.